Yeah, Ancient Mahara here. When the BPDX hoovers you, or recontacts you, or you reversed hoovered them, and now they seem to have a little bit more awareness, and they're telling you that they want to get therapy and they want to get help. What should you do? What does this mean? Well, it's interesting. I've seen other YouTubers talk about this in circuitous ways and invoke things like, well, it depends if they have the willpower. Or do you have the willpower to not go back? It's not about willpower. These things are not about habits. That's an oversimplistic view. People with BPD, again, it is reenactment of adverse childhood experience. It is repetition compulsions. This is compelling, highly protective, basically automatic functioning that's going on really from the amygdala and the fight, freeze or fawn responses. This is not what is not in conscious mind for people with BPD cannot be about will or volition to create change. They don't just have bad habits, right? It's way more than that. So, and people with codependency, and if you're the ex of somebody with BPD right now, and maybe it's a really new relationship breakup, and all that pain and all that hurting and all that suffering, I know I don't have to tell people that you're probably going through right now, unless you're already through a lot of that. Well, the thing is, it's not about your willpower either. People need to go no contact and stay no contact, because then it takes these hoovers off the table, wherein you're going to hear all these promises and a bunch of words that you've been so hungry emotionally to hear that you might just think, well, all right, so now they're willing to get therapy, so they said this, that, and they kind of apologize for something, and they kind of might make more vague statements, but they're statements that aren't really directed to you or about them, like specifically like taking responsibility. But they might say, well, I realize now that I didn't treat you well, or I'm sorry that this or that happened, and I really wanted to get, I miss you. I really want to get into therapy. I'm going to get into therapy. Um, I want to change. I want to try to change. And then they might also say, have some more seeming awareness about what's happened. But make no mistake about it, that's intellectual awareness at best, fleeting more often than not, because if they're not already in a pretty substantial process of treatment, then they don't hang on to these awarenesses. And more to the point, they're highly agendaed awarenesses, so to speak, awarenesses, because they're wanting you to take them back. They're wanting you to try again. And so what is the evidence that's being shown to you in a Hoover, or if you reverse Hoover and you get back in contact, or if you never stop being in contact, which is not really in people's best interest when you've just had a BPD relationship breakup. But however the contact happens, and it can happen within like hours to a day after like a tumultuous, really hurtful and beyond breakup, like blow up and breakup. And then all of a sudden, you're getting this communication about, I want to try to change. I know I need to change. And maybe some other statements that infer a little more awareness. Well, how could that mean anything differently to you hours later, days later, weeks later, or even months to a year or more later? Because that's where you got to lead with your head, not your heart, because it can't mean anything different. Just to put it straight up, keeping it real, to help you heal. It can't mean anything different. Words like I'll try to get in therapy, I'll go to therapy, I want to change, I want to try to change. There's nothing that a hoovering borderline X can say to you that if you really, like your emotions are in it, cognitive dissonance, all the stuff's going on, the unhealthy bond, But if you really could think about it in a more objective way, which is actually one of the impediments for people for not going full no contact and not basing their own healing recovery journey and not basing themselves in the pain that's going to be there when you go full no contact from the person from the BPDX. But make no mistake about it, there's nothing in there in Hoovers and what they'll say. Nothing, absolutely nothing that promises anything different for you. Or that you should hang your hat on something will change. Because that is the codependent denial in and of itself at the center of it all. It didn't work, and maybe you're still in contact and you haven't gone no contact. You're still not taking care of yourself. You're still in active codependency and the denial of said. If you're going to entertain the words of an ex that hoovers you within any period of time, like because they need to get into treatment, they need to go do it. They need to do it because they want to do it. So, what's the agenda when they hoover back with these kind of words and seeming awarenesses? Well, it's to get you back. And when they get you back, if you go back and you re-engage and try again, why are so many people shocked that you go around the same cycle again and much quicker? That it doesn't work. Because these people with BPD can heal and recover. But they need about 8 to 16 years to do it. So when you're getting hoovered after 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, a year, but they're still saying they're going to go to therapy, like they haven't gone or done anything, but they're going to go to therapy, they want to change, they want to try to be a better person, they want to try to change. This is where you have to understand, the English language, right? And what is the intent of words spoken? Because I'm going to try to change. I want to change. I'll go to therapy. None of that is action-oriented speech. And even if they were to say to you in a Hoover, I'm in therapy now, well, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? But what could possibly change in 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, or a year? Not enough by a long shot. And what about your healing and recovery? Why are so many people so eager and willing? It's avoidance of self and your own pain. That's why. That you will consider, and many people will, try it again. And try it again. Because you're in codependent denial. You want to be distracted. There are the unhealthy bonds, right? And they need to be broken, which is why you need to go full no contact. And this person can't be your friend either. So this idea that, it's all about will or volition and for you, that it's the same thing, or that we put the word habits on these. No, it's not habits. It's way deeper than habits. It's adverse childhood experience for people with codependency to varying different degrees, and it's extreme adverse childhood experience for people with BPD. This is not something about having the will to, as I saw another YouTuber talk about, they then started to compare it to if you go on a diet or not. Okay, so probably not the best subject for me to talk about, but this is medical. But I'm just saying, like, even if you need to go on a diet, and a diet would work for you, because I have this medical problem, it's not the same thing, but if you needed to go on a diet, or you're a man and you want to start, and you're the ex of somebody with BP, and you want to start a more workout routine, and find some other ways, self-care, and to get energy out, to deal with your emotions, which, physicality and exercise can help a lot of people. Well, it's not just going to be a matter of what were your habits prior, and because it's not just about habits when it comes to these unhealthy bonds and relationships. And so I think somewhere I saw this, and they were saying, well, like to compare the ex BPD, the ex BPDs who were with this idea of, well, how people have, they didn't even say it this way, but let's just say how people can have good intentions or they want something bad enough to say whatever they, anything you want to hear. Haven't you been around that cycle before? Remember the idealization in the beginning? They were saying everything you wanted to hear. How did that work out? Right? So it isn't like starting a diet. It isn't like starting an exercise regime, or it's not, because those things aren't about willpower either. So there's action taking. And before people can take action, what they're going to take action on has to be in their consciousness. That's number one. People with BPD don't have, untreated, in their consciousness, enough awareness, or a deep enough awareness, not an emotional awareness, from which to derive this volition or will to change. So they're going to say a lot of words. They're going to push a lot of words around. You really got to realize those words are not action. Those words are not anything that you should make, that it's in your best interest to make a decision based on at all. So this idea that, it, like, to try to compare it to a diet, or to try to compare it to, an exercise routine, or changes that you might make in your life. Well, those aren't just about habits and changing habits. Deeper than that. And change has to be sought after. What do I mean by sought after? Excuse me. Not just talked about, not just some, seemingly aha awareness moment, which isn't what the BPDX is having. It's more fleeting, it's intellectual, it's not about anything emotional. So this isn't about will. This isn't about trying to change a habit. And this type of change for people with codependency that need to heal and recover from that and the relationship with the borderline ex, and for people with BPD that need to heal and recover from BPD, it's not about habits. It's about deeply ingrained repetition compulsion patterns in people with BPD and in people with codependency. And in both cases, for different reasons to varying degrees, both people with BPD and codependency are avoiding, well, people with BPD don't know the self. People with codependency are avoiding themselves. You've learned that in childhood. It's now an ingrained pattern in you, whether you're aware of it or not. So how does one then get to the awareness of the need for change? Well, for people with BPD untreated, they're not going to suddenly muster that up in any real authentic way because they're trying to get you back. Look at the agenda there. Look at the reason why they would say what they say. Even if they think that they really mean it at the time they say it, it's not going to end up in being something they take action on. Or they might start, but then they need 8 to 16 years. How's it going to help you? And more to the point, if you think you can just go back after all you've been through, codependent denial right there, after all you've been through, you think you can go take that risk again? And abandon yourself again? To the fact that they're not going to be changed because they need years of therapy to change. So what about your change? What about what's in your control today as a person with codependency, as the ex of somebody with BPD, maybe newly, maybe just recently, maybe a little bit longer ago or quite a while ago, but you're still stuck in the cycles of wanting them back or pining for them and the cognitive dissonance and ruminating about them, etc. Because you're still in codependent denial and you're still trying to avoid yourself. So the clear answer for people with codependency, once there's been a BPD relationship breakup, however that happens, you need to close the door. And if they ghost you and slam the door in your face, leave it shut. You really need to get on your own healing and recovery journey, because that's all you have control over. You will not ever have control over another human being, let alone somebody with untreated BPD. And yet somehow they can kind of get control over you in a way, can't they? Because what they're doing unknowingly is they are triggering people with codependency back to childhood woundedness. And this plays out from your unconscious in the here and now, and then maybe you act on it. And make no mistake about it, people with codependency have a lot of impulsivity too. It really varies But again, there's overlaps with BPD, and impulsivity can be one of them. The repetition compulsion cycles aren't the same, but there are those in each, as I've said. So when the borderline X, you stay in contact with them, or you reverse Hoover, or they Hoover you, and now you're hearing these lovely words, the words that are just like the Siren song. I would have a video with that name talking about the beginning is too good to be true, and they're not, who you fall in love with isn't who they are. But haven't you heard this before in a different way? Haven't you already believed what they said to you in the beginning? And where did that get you? Think about that seriously. So this is all really compelling stuff for people. It's all really difficult for people, without a doubt. And it's tremendously painful and difficult. This is why you need to get into therapy. This is why you need to take care of yourself. This is why you need to go full no contact when the BPD relationship breakup happens, whether it's ghosting or you decided to leave the relationship. So change requires a deep commitment. And to have a deep commitment to change, it must A, be for oneself only, because you can't change anybody else, and B, it has to be because you want it. You want it really badly now. You want out of the pain you're in after the BPD relationship breakup. You need to go forward. It's not that easy, but you need to set the intent. You need to have goals, and you need to pursue them. And the first thing that you need to do once the BPD relationship breakup has happened, however it breaks up, go no contact, full no contact, which feels impossible. While you're ruminating, while you're going through the cognitive dissonance with the unhealthy bondedness still there and the chemical soup pining away for all of that. But then get yourself into therapy ASAP to learn more about it, to talk about it, to have an outlet, to be heard and to be helped, and to not just stay in the same repetition compulsions of people with codependency after the BPD relationship breakup. Because invariably they lead way more many people back around the cycle again. And then you're just going to go around again. You're going to experience the same things again, no matter what the Hoovering borderline X says. And then you're going to get spit out the other end and be back at ground zero and be hurting even more. And if you do that several times, you'll be hurting more each time. It's like now it's going backwards and then some. So why would you want to put yourself in that precarious a situation when you're already in a world of hurt? Codependency is a very tricky thing, and people need to wake up to that, to the realization that you need to take action first and deal with it later. You can't wait till it feels right. You can't wait till it feels okay. People with codependency are all up in like, well, I need to talk to my BPDX still because, like, what if they hurt themselves? What if they do the worst? What if they do this? What if they do that? But you don't have any control over all of that. And then people with codependency, I mean this with real, total empathy and no judgment. You believe so much in your love for this person. But get into that healing and recovery journey. I'm out here to work with you if you resonate with me, that you can find out where that's really coming from, and that it isn't all about the person, the X with BPD, the way that it feels that it is. You've displaced a lot of your own feelings and needs onto the person with BPD, and it's a replication of some adverse experience from your childhood, and it probably isn't in your conscious awareness. So it doesn't matter what a BPDX comes hoovering back, or if you're still in contact or you reverse hoover. It doesn't matter what they say. Because what I want you to think about today, and if this is happening or you're thinking about giving someone a second chance, instead of giving yourself that chance, right? To get to know yourself, to heal yourself, the family of origin work, healing from codependency, the inner child work, self-differentiation, so much more. You need to know that when you give them another chance, you're just seeking to get out of your own pain. You're seeking the distraction of the person that caused you the pain in the first place, and your own codependent patterns that also help you to get there, that are also causing some of your pain. It's not all about the borderline. A lot of it is, but it's not all about that. So people with codependency really need to learn more about this, and I'm talking about it often, but if you're not ready to hear it, you're not ready to hear it. And if you're not ready to let go of these knee-jerk behaviors, ways that you learned in childhood to keep avoiding yourself and avoiding and abandoning yourself in your own pain, you're just going to keep increasing your pain and suffering. And you have responsibility in that, because if the ex hoovers and says, I want to change, I know I need to change, I'm going to try to change, I'm going to get therapy, I'll try to go to therapy, but they're not doing, they can't change that quickly. And what about all the woundedness that you have? How do you think you can walk back in and try the relationship over when they've changed nothing, you've changed nothing? How's that going to create any change between the two of you? It won't. It doesn't. So when the ex of BPD hoovers you, or you reverse hoover, or you don't go from low contact to take care of yourself, and you keep recycling through this, then you're in denial. You're going to increase your pain. You're responsible for your choices, and you're still externalizing out to control, to help, to fix, to rescue other, instead of doing what is a very painful pivot, but a very worthwhile one, which is slamming the door shut, going full no contact, and starting to look at your pain, what you need to heal and recover from. Everything isn't about the borderline or the narcissist. Lots is about people with codependency. And what you need, and the good news there is you have agency. You have control over getting into your own process and therapy. You have some control over starting to get into your own healing process and recovery process. You have no control over the borderline or the narcissist, for that matter. But you want to keep externalizing out like you're going to help them, you're going to fix them, you're going to support them, or you're going to save them, and or you're going to save them from themselves, or how they might act out, or what impulsive choices they may make in their own lives. Not your responsibility. And then to the last point I want to make it here, and I've made it before, but I hope that you can hear it today. People with codependency who are so in love with the borderline ex, or the narcissist, your love isn't that healthy to begin with either. And you really need to get into a healing recovery journey so you can find out what healthy love is. So why are you pouring all this love into somebody that just keeps hurting you? And don't forget, last thing I'm going to say here again to reiterate, the words of the hoovering ex with BPD, no matter what they are or how good they sound, are coming from the intellect, where change cannot be actualized from. And they're saying to you what? They're saying what you want to hear so that you'll take them back again. And you've already been through that once. In the beginning of the relationship, when it was all too good to be true, but you believed it all then, and you got in the relationship, and you couldn't have known better, right? But now you know better. You really do. But the codependent denial and the avoidance of yourself, because you don't feel worthy enough to take care of yourself, to turn into your own healing and recovery, and get away from externalizing it all out onto somebody with BPD or NPD. So you've already heard this line before in a different way. You've already heard their promises. You've already heard them tell you who they, quote, are. Turns out they're not. Full no contact is so important, but if you're still having contact, being hoovered, reverse hoovering, and engaging those contacts, reading the emails, get the messages, whatever, then just know you need to change that, and you have the ability to change that by going no contact. And if you don't, and if you listen to their words, well, they're gonna, you're gonna be falling for the same thing you fell for in the first place, only now you know better. So I hope that that means something to you, even if it pisses you off, even if you're not ready to hear it, because you can't change another human being on the face of this earth, but you can change yourself. You can get into a process of recovery, healing, and change for yourself. So can people with BPD, but they have to go do that by themselves. And there's really no holding on to these dysfunctional, very unhealthy relationships and bonds in the meantime, because it will preclude you and the borderline from really getting the treatment and help that you need. And please understand, couples counseling and therapy for two people, it's a disaster. And more than ever before, in all countries in the world, systems are failing, and they do not systemically, is not, there is no recognition of what people on the other side of the BPD relationship breakup, the non-borderline, the codependent, what you're going through when you seek help from systems or mental health, systems where you live. 9 times out of 10, they're going to fail you. They're going to look at you like you have BPD. Because of the state that you're in after the relationship doesn't mean you have BPD. Anyway, this whole idea that change is about willpower, no, it's not. It doesn't work for diets. It doesn't work for exercise routines. It doesn't work for New Year's resolutions. It doesn't work for change. Only forming an intent to change, having goals, and taking healthy action and getting into action is going to help you to get to change. And even then, it's a process. So, people with codependency, you need to go full no contact. And then you need to get into therapy ASAP. And you need to start building up your intent and following through on the action of the change that you have the agency and control over, and leave the borderline to their own devices, because whatever happens to them, I don't mean to sound cold hearted, but you have no say in what happens to them. And whatever they do or don't do is not your responsibility. So when the ex Hoovers and or you reverse Hoover, or you choose not to go full no contact, or you stay in contact for any reason whatsoever, you're putting yourself second. Make no mistake about it. You're doing to yourself now in the here and now, people with codependency, what a parent did to you in childhood, and you're repeating it. And you deserve more than that, and you're worth more than that. Take care.